Okay, so let's get started on extinction. Person says that I am an animal. He accuses me of being an animal. Yeah, I'm an animal, especially in bed, uh, yeah, I'm an animal and very proud of it. Okay, and you should be too because we are all animals. And the way we do it in science is we have to define what an animal is, and then you either fit the category or you don't. It's just as simple as that. So let's find out what an animal is. Okay, this is the official version. Okay, out there, and it says that we have rocks and minerals. Those are not animals. Those are not living entities. Okay, and then you have viruses, proteins, and other you could say inert matter. They're just molecules. A virus is not a living entity. A lot of people think they are because they say, well, they move around, they get sick and so on, so it's got to be something that is alive. And that's not true. A virus is just a very complex molecule, just like a protein is a molecule, just like DNA is a molecule. And the virus only works its magic when it gets inside a cell, and that's where it starts, you could say, moving. Okay, what it does is makes copies. It's a molecule that makes copies of itself, essentially. Same with DNA, by the way. Other than that, well, you have what we know as living entities, and you can fit yourself in any of these categories that you wish to to fit in. If you're not an animal, you are insulted by by someone saying that you're an animal. Well, you can be a tree or a flower. Is that what you are? Are you a plant? Are you fungi, algae, bacteria, archaea? I mean, what are you? If you don't fit any of these categories, perhaps, just perhaps, you're a Martian, okay? Uh, you're kind of green, maybe some kind of mixture between something that's alive and not, maybe between plant and animal. So yeah, we have to define what an animal is, and the way we define it is there you see some of the things that an animal does, and that's how typically people define these words. And it says multicellular, eukaryotic organisms that consume organic material, breathe oxygen, are able to move, can reproduce sexually, and grow. Okay, eukaryotes, they're organisms whose cells have nucleus enclosed within nuclear envelope, and prokaryotes are unicellular organisms that lack a nuclear membrane or enclosed nucleus. Okay, essentially, what it comes down to is that I hope I'm still on. I get an error from YouTube. So if someone could confirm that I'm still alive here, YouTube again is telling me that I get an error. I don't know where I'm receiving these lately. But if you can hear me fine, we'll continue. Anyways, let me continue anyways. And so let me put this up there. Here it is. And these are the differences between a prokaryote and a eukaryote. And then at the bottom, you see the differences between plant cells and animal cells. Okay, and that's what distinguishes us from plants and other. Okay, thank you. I hope you can hear me fine. I hope you can read all this and listen to me, hear me fine. Okay. Anyways, these are the differences between prokaryotes and eukaryotes, plant cells and animal cells, and you either fit on one side or on the other. And if you don't like these definitions, well, what you can do is define the word scientifically. That way we know what you're talking about when you get, yeah, when you get excited when someone tells you that you're an animal. What would you like to be called? A plant? A rock? A mineral? Okay. What should we call you? What category should we put you if not in the animal category? Okay. And again, we're not talking about everyday language. We're not talking about out there, the ordinary speech. We're talking about scientific language. This side deals with science. So we need to define these terms so that we can use them consistently. And there you have, at least we should be able to distinguish between a plant and an animal and, a rock. Okay, we should be able to establish a difference. Okay. Okay, along the same lines, a fellow says, or asks, says, it can be assumed that higher terrestrial life developed. Higher terrestrial life. I don't know how high or how low terrestrial life is. These are opinions. What is high, what is low? Is high an eagle? Is that what's high and low is a fish because he's in the water? I mean, I don't know what high and low mean, okay? So you got to clarify that. But I'm concerned about another word, and which is the one that concerns biology. And there's not a single biology on Earth that's ever learned to define the word life. And it turns out biology is the study of life, or so they say. Okay, hopefully it's not. Hopefully biology is some kind of explanation and not just a study of. Okay, but here it is. Here's a definition for life. Okay, so that we can use it consistently. And we go with the word living or alive. What is a living entity? Okay, and it's a natural object that self-propels against the path of least resistance, primarily against gravity. Okay, so if you can move towards against gravity, okay, then you are a living entity, and if self-propelled, obviously by yourself, okay, of your own volition. And then you see the unit of life, it's the cell. Okay? A couple examples, one is a single cell, the other one is a cell moving through other cells, I guess. Okay, so this is what life is, and what you got to do is define life, and whether these are higher or lower, that's an opinion. That's I'm not sure how you can categorize that. We typically look at bacteria and I don't know, cells, single cells, as something that is so basic. I guess we call them lower forms of life. Okay, but those are, again, more important is to define the word life so that you can use a consistency in the discipline known as biology. Okay, another issue raises, and he says the following. Down syndrome. People have healthy children, usually on nutrient-dense diets. This is reversing the degeneration. This individual believes, like many out there, that food somehow changes your genetic degeneration, maybe from one generation to another, you know, and so there are people who believe that by eating, they can reverse things like genetics, your genome or whatever, you know. I don't think so. Okay, your friend could have. He's referring to a friend that I mentioned the other day that has. She was missing one chromosome. Instead of 23, she had 22. Because of that, her muscles deteriorated, and the last time I saw her, which was some years ago, she could barely stand up. She could barely move her arm. She was getting very weak because of her something affecting her muscles, and she inherited that from her father. So this fellow says your friend could have healthy children if she was careful to consume a nutrient-dense diet with conception. I don't know, maybe, could be, you know, some sick people do have normal children. I know, in fact, of one case specifically, a high school gal. She had all kinds of problems when she was young, in fact, to this day, but she had very healthy children. Maybe what she had was not genetic. Okay? So the issue is genetics here, whether you can reverse some kind of genetic process or some genetic constitution that you have, some serious problem that you might have, if you can reverse that by eating, by just changing your diet. And I'm not so sure that's the case. I'll give you an example. You know, lions eat meat, cows eat grass, and both of them, you know, because of their different genetics, they produce meat on their bones. You couldn't tell the difference much. I mean, there are obviously differences, but you know, they're both mammals. One is a herbivore, the other one's a carnivore, and yet they eat such widely different foods, and they both put meat on their bones, and they both have bones, by the way. And they are constructed, you know, also with a head, 4 legs, etc. So I'm not sure you can say, well, I'm going to eat asparagus or whatever, you know, and I'm going to have my kid is instead of 4 legs, he's going to have 3 legs. I don't think it's going to work. He'll come out with 4 legs, believe me. Okay, another fellow. Lots of people ask questions regarding politics, and this fellow came along those lines. He says, war has nothing to do with the economy. When the economy goes south from their manipulation, war is all about politics and corruption in government. People are so much into politics, and you know, they should quit politics. They should get out of politics completely. You know, what can I say? See if I got something here now to show you. But what I'm saying is that, you know, you should get away from politics. Politics is, no country in the world is different. They're all the same. They all have a mafia that runs the country. Some call themselves communists, others call themselves capitalists, free markets, mixed economies. They have all these different categories. They're all mafias. They have a mafia on top that rules the country, and they have their influences, and they put those influences, you know, in motion. They do something with those influences, those ability to influence the country. And so because they can do that, they manipulate the country any way they want. And it doesn't matter if you say, well, I'm going to vote him out of office next time around. I'll get someone else. And the next guy that you get does the same thing. And over and over and over since we ever, at least since we've invented civilization. So nothing has changed. And no, I say war has to do ultimately with economics. What is economics? Management of resources. There you see, a fellow even said that. That's what economics is. It's management of resources. And when someone stands in the way of your resources, what you do is you fight them. You know, lion has to fight another lion because he's in the way of his resources. Primary one is food, but but he would like to have the harem, okay, the pride, so that the gals can go out there hunt something and he gets to eat, and he in turn he protects them. I give you a protection, and so the guy standing in the way is the other lion. So they got to resolve the situation, and usually it's not peaceful. Okay, so no, war is about resources ultimately, not about corruption and all that. All governments are corrupt. There's no difference between them. Okay, so why do you think they would rather use bioweapons rather than nukes? Because this bioweapons can be focused on specific populations and races, killing off the locals and leaving the infrastructure intact. Well, hopefully you're not talking about nukes, because nukes obviously will destroy buildings as well. And you do mention nukes. And do you think if they start throwing the nukes as well as the bioweapons, there's going to be anything left in the cities, especially if they drop them on the cities, will the skyscrapers still be there? I mean, I think it's a done deal that when they throw the nukes, at least, that's it for man. And of course, also if they superimpose upon that bioweapons. Okay, so bioweapons are designed to leave buildings and roads intact. Okay, yeah. The bioweapons are designed to kill people. The nukes are designed to kill people and buildings. Essentially, that's what he's saying. Okay, but I like his next statement. He says, "So yes, even more people will die this time around," meaning the Third World War. Okay, in the billions, yes, but not everyone. Well, someone always survives a war, right? And this time we're going to fewer will survive. I guess if there is a nuke and bio war, few will survive that. But let's say 10,000 people. Let's say 10,000 people survive on Earth, okay? And they're not going to survive the 10,000 in the same place. They're going to be scattered around. And one of the things that's going to be lacking is food, because you've destroyed everything, okay? And so these people will be there in their own little pockets. They won't know that there's someone else on the other side, because there won't be any way to reach these other people, okay? And if you do, you're in trouble, because you don't know if they're going to receive you or kill you. There's going to be this trust but verify issue, right? And so here you are in your little pocket. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think you're going to reproduce and have children, start the Adam and Eve things all over again? No. First of all, our genetic diversity is gone. We have very little genetic diversity, meaning that even if you reproduce a couple generations later, that's it. More than likely, you're going to be worried about subsistence farming. You're going to be producing food for yourself. And it's not going to give you much time to reproduce, or would you want to produce another individual that is not going to do anything for you except be, just someone else that you got to maintain, okay, a dependent. And then you have the issue of what for? Why would you produce another child? Do you think you would have the psychological fortitude after a world war where everyone's gone around you? Do you think you would have the fortitude to go in there and say, okay, it's business as usual, I'm just going to have a kid? No, those people who survive will just live out their lives. There won't be any reproduction. And so even if a few survive, it's going to be the end of man one way or the other. It's just going to be staggered. It's not going to be all dying at the same time because of nuclear war. There's going to be some differences between the war, when they stop throwing the nuclear weapons and biological weapons, and whoever survives, well, he survives until he dies, and that's it. That's going to be the end of man. So we're talking about the extinction of man one way or the other. So yeah, everyone will die sooner, a little later, but not sooner, but a little later. Okay, but they will all die. And so he says, if economic is management of resources, where do you get war out of that? Again, war has to do with managing resources. And you would always like to manage the resources of the guy that's on the other side, who's standing in your way. A lion has to fight another lion because this guy, the head of the pride, he's standing in the way of his progress, of his resources. So yeah, war is about resources ultimately. And you are describing the collapse and extinction of our current form of government, not humanity. No, government, the day government collapses, that's the end of humanity. Okay? There is no way to live without government. Okay? And even if we live without government, the first thing we do is create a government. We create the rules, the laws. It's part of our social culture. That's what we are. We are essentially we are social animals. I'm sorry, I said animals. Oh, we are social animals, and social animals need a government. Okay? Not that we want to have it, but it's like a government always uh, pops up. It comes out of nowhere. There is no such thing as a few humans without a government. Someone always rules or has most of the influence. Okay, here's another issue along the same line: war. People are concerned with war, and I think we should be concerned with war because I think we're headed that way. Probably, very likely that if there is a clash, somewhere it could escalate. Okay? It says, "Is a world where people only have one kid? Do you think they will be as eager to send them into war?" Well, the next war will not be with people. Okay? It'll be pressing buttons. Again, we're talking about nuclear and bioweapons. It's going to be a button war. You don't need people for that. You just need 5 fingers in each hand and be able, especially the index finger, just press buttons. Okay? So a lot of the war, even conventional war today, is done like that. They send those missiles from the ships all the way to where they want them. So a lot of that is already being done in one way or another. Okay, another comment, issue, question someone raised says markets have already been disrupted. The crisis is not in the market, it is in the government. People are so concerned with politics. Try to maintain your mind on science, causes. Causes primarily, not opinions, not recommendations, but causes, okay? Physical causes, especially. In this case, we're not talking really about, we could talk about causes when we talk about war, for example, or markets collapsing, but the issue is also a philosophical issue. We want to know the reasons and the purposes people had for investing, for that sort of thing. You have to have an explanation. Then you're doing science. Otherwise, you're doing just philosophy, religion, which is opinion, which is recommendation, which is how government should be run, and you don't like that other government, and so on. That's all opinion. That's religion. And then he says there is a cycle to food. I have no idea what that means. You would need to clarify that in quite a bit of detail for me to even address it. Okay. Next issue, fellow says money is the most saleable good, usually gold, so it's not a concept. The word money is a concept. Okay, money is a concept. Now there are different diverse forms of money. You have gold, which is tangible, meaning the rock, the coin, whatever you have in your hand. That's tangible, and that's an object. But money, the word money, is a concept, and essentially it means trade. You're exchanging goods or services or whatever. You're exchanging. Money means exchange, essentially. Okay, that's what the word money represents. It's the medium of exchange, or the currency we use to do exchange. But it's also could be a solid product. And one of the products is food. Money, food can be money. Okay. The problem is we're not used to real money like gold, and instead we're mostly using counterfeit money. Again, opinion. Counterfeit means the guy has a political opinion. A recommendation, maybe. Don't get that money because it's counterfeit. Okay. Here's another question along the same line. Paul says, let me get this here right. Money, the good and highest demand in a given economy. Good luck ever having an economy without a good in highest demand. Well, the day that the global economy collapses, okay, then food will be the only good in the highest demand, the only demand. And that'll be the only resource you will manage, meaning you will have an economy or management of resource. You'll be managing food and you will not have money because money will be no more. You will no longer trade. Okay, you will no longer trade like we never trade in, I don't know, in the Paleolithic. There was no trade. Okay, we invented trade when we invented, after the Neolithic, when we invented commercial farming. We went from subsistence farming where you produce for yourself, your family, your clan, whatever. And at some point, people started exchanging things because they were able to primarily have trust. Without trust, there could never have been um, exchange, money, trade. You have to have confidence. You have to have faith, and that did not exist in the Paleolithic. Even among humans, the Cro-Magnons, the Cro-Magnon, there was no trade between them. It was like the lions. A guy who was from a different clan, he was your enemy. He was a different country, let alone if he's a different species like Neanderthals. You have people out there, paleontologists, who say that the Neanderthals and the Cro-Magnons traded seashells, I guess for prostitution. I don't know. Maybe to sleep with a beautiful Neanderthal gal, hairy. Well, you got to take your clothes off. She doesn't. Okay. Another issue. Fellow said, can you elaborate on why you consider service jobs to be the same as being unemployed? Okay, so let me address that issue. I've addressed it more or less in the past. I'm going to give you a little clue there of why I consider this. It's not part of our. What was I going to say? It's not part of our material world. Okay, it's part of a world in which we have all these services, these abstractions, and so I distinguish abstractions from solid things, from objects. Okay, so that's the first difference we have there. But here, let me give you the analogy. Okay, for a little story. Okay, here it goes. And the way it works is this is God, and He's looking down on the world. Okay, and he's what does He see? What is it that He sees? Well, He sees the things that we constructed. He sees the buildings. He sees the land for sure. He sees the crops that we planted or are about to be harvested. He sees cars. He sees ships. He sees I don't know, everything we built, bridges, roads. That He sees. He doesn't see insurance. What is insurance? Insurance is a promise. So those people who work in insurance, they say, well, I got a job. I'm working in insurance. Well, yeah, according to our organization, we call it a job. But the guy's not producing anything, any more than the guy who sings. What is he producing? Well, you can go over all these issues like saying, well, he produces value and he produces something that someone wants to hear and is willing to pay for and all that stuff. He's producing nothing. When you produce an intangible, you're producing absolutely nothing. Okay? God only sees, good old God, He made the universe, right? So He should know. He sees only what's constructed, what's there. And so that's the difference between, like I said the other day, and I'm going to get to that in a second, wealthy and rich, okay, more or less. Wealthy is a guy who has something, has tangible things. And so how wealthy is the earth? Well, just look at what you have, what's out there. You know, the countries are always judged, whether they're advanced nations or backward nations. How do they judge that? How do they come up with all these notions? Well, they look at how developed the country is. I mean, how many roads does it have? What does it have? You're looking down through the satellite or through God's eyes, and what do you see down there? Well, if you don't see much construction, you see just farmland and, services, okay? There's nothing there. What you're going to look at is what's constructed, what is tangible, that's what really has value. The promise of for example, insurance, that's nothing. And you say, well, yeah, I'm going to collect when I get sick. Someone pays for my doctor and they give me services. They cure me. They operate on me. You know, the day the global economy collapses, let's just assume that, the only thing of value will be what God can see. All those promises like insurance, they're not there anymore. They vanished into thin air. The singing, that went away. All these things that people did, all the verbs, they disappear. The only thing that remains are the nouns. And that's how you can tell the difference between, what is and what ain't. What is are the things, what we constructed, what's already constructed, what we built, and the food. Obviously, these are the tangibles. The intangibles, I don't know. Gone with the wind. Okay, one fellow says, maybe a debt jubilee will be the last-ditch attempt. Yeah, I think this might actually happen, that maybe the last straw will be that governments will somehow deal with the debt in such a way that it will be part of the global collapse. of the global economic collapse. So I think one of the processes that will eventually happen will be that there will be a jubilee for debt, and that might be one of the last steps that governments take, because after that, I'm not sure what tools, both monetary or fiscal, they can apply to restart the global economy. What are they going to do? Print more money? Devalue what's already been devalued to close to zero, to having no value because nobody wants the money. Why? Because they can't reach the end of the month with what little money they're given and so on. So yeah, I think the debt jubilee is part of that process. Okay, here's the rich issue, rich versus wealthy. Okay, and Phil says a rich guy has purchasing power. A wealthy person also has purchasing power. Right, so there's no difference, right? A poor person has less purchasing power. Yeah, okay, we understand now. Finally, we understand. The rich and the wealthy have nothing to do with your extinction event. Never said they did. In fact, let me put the answers here to them so that you can see them side by side. Okay, here it is. What this fellow is saying, he's saying that the rich versus the wealthy. All I'm saying is that rich, I'm redefining what rich is and what wealthy is. Rich is a person who has liquidity, has money, but does not have things. And wealthy is a guy who has things, but does not have money, does not have liquidity, anything to trade of that is liquid. Now, like I said, a rich person can become wealthy by buying things, and wealthy can become rich by selling things. No problem at all. But I want to keep those two terms separate, rich from wealthy, so that we can use them consistently in a dissertation. Okay, that's the point. So we're not using the terms of ordinary speech. We want to give them some scientific meaning so that we distinguish rich from wealthy. And I was going to say here that, let me put this aside for a second. I put there blue bloods versus dilapidated castles, or having dilapidated castles. Here in Germany, you have people who are blue bloods, and by that I mean they descend from big names of the past, and so they inherited these names, and they inherited maybe a castle. So the guy, you'd say, oh man, he's rich. Turns out he's not rich. In fact, he's more or less on Social Security. He depends on the government to help him out with handouts, either through welfare or some form of help, coming out of taxes, by the way. And you say, how can that be possible? The guy's a blue blood. He's got a castle. Yeah, the castle, he might have a dilapidated castle, or a rundown castle. And it turns out that he's got no money. After centuries, maybe his father, maybe he himself, they liquidated all their money, played it at the casino or whatever, and lost all his money, or maybe investing. And the guy has no money. He's a blue blood without money. He's wealthy, but he's not rich. Okay? Now he's got this castle, but nobody wants it. And it's got a little bit of history, and the guy carries the name, maybe he's a Habsburg, and he's got the castle. And now what does he do? Nobody wants his castle. He doesn't want to really sell it because he's tied to it culturally. His family owned it for centuries. What does a guy like that do that doesn't have any money to do anything with that castle, to even, prop it up? And so what the government does, they give him money. They say, look, we'll give you money, and it's going to be good for Germany, because we want you to fix this place up. You stay in there. You're going to be the tour guide, the Habsburg tour guide by a Habsburg himself, and you can tell him about your family's history, and we'll give you money. We'll give you a salary, and all we want you to do is fix up the castle so that it's good for tourism. So the guy is really wealthy but not rich, and he can't sell that castle, partly because maybe nobody wants it, or few people, there's not much of a market for it. Another is that maybe the government doesn't want anyone to buy that, because it's one of those things that the government tries to keep forever, historical landmarks, etc. And so that's the arrangement they have. They give this guy welfare money in order to keep the castle running. So yeah, it's not the same thing to talk about wealthy and rich. Okay, that's the point I wanted to make there. And the next the next issue is the rich and the wealthy have nothing to do with your extinction event. Well, I never said that they did. Okay, so I don't know where he got that. I never said that the rich and poor the rich and wealthy have anything to do with extinction. I'm saying something else. I'm saying that I'm just distinguishing between rich and wealthy so that we can use these words consistently in a dissertation. And then we have this issue that he raises. He says the haves and the have-nots. I brought that issue the other day, saying that in the future, when the world economy collapses, there will be only two kinds of people, and some will be the haves, the other ones the have-nots. And the haves will be those who have food, and have-nots will be either those who don't have food for a short while, and then they'll be the dead. Okay, so that's the way you got to look at that. And so I don't do politics anymore. To talk about Marxism is, for me, politics, and it's just opinion. Okay, Marxism is no different than capitalism, because all countries that claim to be capitalist, all countries that claim to be Marxist, what they do is plain old half and half. They do what is called a what do you call it? Mixed system. Okay, some things are capitalist, and some things are communist, and you'll see that in every single country of the world. There is no country that is purely capitalist or purely Marxist. Schooling is typically Marxist. Health in many countries is Marxist. What other things? Anything that is social welfare, unemployment, social security, all that stuff is communism, Marxism. You could say it. I mean, that's where it would fit. And then you go to China. Is it a communist country? No, it's a capitalist country. Totally capitalist. It's got a dictatorship, yes, but underneath, it's all capitalism. Everybody can buy and sell and own land and all that kind of stuff, and so it's capitalism. There is no such thing as pure capitalism, pure communism. Every country in the world is a mixed system. Is that the best way to govern? Well, I don't know. That's an opinion, not part of science. Okay, continuing here, getting more into the subject matter of extinction. Person says the dinosaurs lived for millions of years before the sun killed them off. The sun killed them off. Well, how did the sun do that? I hope he's talking about the sun and not a son like my son, not like that. Okay, he's talking about the sun. So what is the mechanism? How did it do it? You got to tell me how the sun managed to kill us off, kill the dinosaurs off. What is the mechanism? So yeah, I mean, people just say these things, but they don't have a mechanism. They just, the sun killed them. Did they fry him? Did the sun fry him to death? Is that how these animals died? My God. Okay, and so here another person says, mainstream scientists blame climate change for dino extinction. Not really. Okay, I'll get to that in a second. Some vary on what caused this climate change, asteroids, volcanoes, CO2, but I'm sure they agree that it was the effect of climate change on food that killed off the dinos. I don't know. Here's the outline. Let me give you an outline of what mainstream believes for the dinos. Okay, here it is. Okay, these are the steps. First, an asteroid hits the Earth. There is a climate change, but you got to put it in the right context, okay? Because there's several aspects to that. One is the impact winter, okay, which is the cloud covering the Earth, and so now you don't have any photosynthesis going on, so the plants die, okay? When the plants die, well, guess what? Who follows next? The herbivores, right? And once they are no longer around, guess what? The carnivores are out. Okay, so this is more or less the sequence of events. The problem here is that impact winter, cloud covering the Earth, dust, cloud, etc. The question is, how does that produce selectivity? How come some animals die and others continue if photosynthesis is the same for the cactus as it is for the cycad? Cycad being the ancient plant, okay? Primarily, you have these cycads, Williamsonias, cycad-likes as they were called, some of them. These plants disappeared, and magnolias, those continued. How does a dust cloud that affects the entire planet, distinguish between one and the other? And so unless you can answer that selectivity, that's what it's called, you have no theory. And that theory of the dust cloud doesn't explain anything. Doesn't explain what a mass extinction theory should explain, which is selectivity. So I don't know how to get that notion across to people. People say, well, it was this, or it was that. Yeah, but you got to explain the selectivity issue. If you can't explain it, well, what's the point of just stating stuff? Egg predation I mentioned the other day, or someone mentioned gravity. Okay, fine. So you say egg predation. How did that work? Well, they say they have all these little mammals in the case of dinosaurs, right? They came around, they started eating the eggs of the dinosaurs, and so the new generation of dinosaurs did not appear. Well, the first problem is, these little mammals, they were around for millions of years. Why didn't it happen before? You know, it's like saying that the cockroaches are going to drive us to extinction because they're going to eat all our food in our fridge, or kill our babies or something. You know, yeah. Please explain it. How that's going to work out. You know, you got to explain how these little animals didn't do it before, and then you got to explain. Okay, so that happened on land. What happened in the seas? How did the reptiles disappear? Did tiny animals eat their eggs in the seas? And if so, why didn't it happen before? Why did it happen 65 million years ago, more or less? That's what you got to answer. Okay, so what can we say? These theories don't work out very well until you can justify them. Okay, person asks, are there signs of reduced size in fossils, in the fossil record in a few final generations of the, that conduced to mass extinctions, right? Human beings are the fattest we've ever been, so I expect our great starvation will start at least 50 years from now. Okay, let's address the first question. It says, is there any evidence, for example, in the case of the dinosaurs, for the fossil record where the final generations reduced in size? Okay, there is one process known as this island constriction, where some animals, like elephants, that got stuck on an island, or also the mammoths that got stuck on an island, and they start shrinking. Okay, so there is a process like that, a million-year process, hundreds of thousands of years, where these animals actually shrink. Okay, so there is a process like that. But in general, what we see in mass extinctions is the following. Here's an example, and it's from the Cretaceous, and there it is. This is an ammonite, okay, that was found in Germany, and it dates to the end of the Cretaceous. And you can see that they're big. It's 6 feet tall, 6 feet in diameter. And so animals did grow big in those days, towards the end of the extinctions. And I'm not only talking about the Cretaceous, I'm talking as well about, for example, the end of Permian, they were big animals. End of Triassic, big animal. End of the Jurassic, we had the biggest animals on Earth before the whales came around. So, always towards the end of a mass extinction, the animals are big. That's the first clue. The second clue is they are old. They've been around for a while. The animals that die in a mass extinction are always, always, always old. Okay, so keep that in mind. It's the old generation that passes the baton to the new generation. That's what happens in a mass extinction. So those are the things that you got to look at. And if you don't believe me, well, you go out there and do your research and reach your own conclusion. Those are the assumptions under which I work. And you say, well, okay, the ammonites were big. Well, yeah, it turns out that the mosasaurs, which were monsters, sea reptiles, they fed on ammonites. That was apparently their biggest lunch or dinner, the element, the food. That's what they wanted to eat. That's what they ate. So what did these guys eat? Well, they were filter feeders, and so these folks ate this. They ate forams, and here you see the difference between the forams and the ones that came after. You can see the sizes, the differences in sizes. The ones on the left, which are the end of the Cretaceous and that disappeared, they were monsters. For being plankton, they were huge. They were the dinosaurs of the seas of the world of foraminiferous. Okay, and what do you see on the right? Well, those were the new ones, and they started all over again. These are the ones that were going to radiate during the Tertiary, which is essentially our world today. So these expanded, and they disappeared as well, many of them. Okay, but yeah, towards the end of a mass extinction, the animals grow big. We are an example. We were smaller in the past, way in the past. If we take it to Homo habilis or even Homo erectus, we were bigger in general. Okay, so keep that in mind. Towards the end of a mass extinction, animals grow big. In fact, today, among modern humans, which you can maybe date to 200,000 years ago, you're right, 200, 300,000 years ago, we are the largest that humans have ever been. So we are the T-Rexes, if we're going to use that as a size comparison. We are the T-Rexes of our lineage. We're the last of our kind, the last of the hominids, and of course, we are big. It doesn't get any bigger than us. We're not going to grow much, much bigger. But today we see, people in Holland are the biggest people, the tallest people on Earth as an average. And man, they are huge. They are the T-Rexes of humans, of man. Okay, a couple more issues here, I think. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, I just want to say that we do want to do Extinction 101 before we do 102, and some people try to meet that standard. Okay, we want to make sure we understand a mass extinction before we extrapolate that to a human extinction, which is Extinction 102. And I always leave you, or I try to leave you from now on, with this question, which gives you a clue to why mass extinctions happened. That's what I'm going to argue, okay? And that is, the homework is, why did the fauna in the seas disappear at the same time as the animals on land? If you can figure that out, if you can figure why that happened more or less simultaneously, well, I think you've figured out a very important clue of how Mother Nature does her mass extinctions.